What is Agent 47 doing in the worst reviewed game of 2025? Well, the developer of Hitman, IO Interactive, saw fit to launch their publishing initiative with none other than a game called MindsEye. Created by former Rockstar employees and being set in a satirical version of an iconic American city, the debut title from builder Rocket Boy seemed like it was trying to recreate the success of the Grand Theft Auto series. Unfortunately, it came up very short. This game is a No Man's Sky level disaster on launch, but with very little prospects for a comeback. Sitting at 38 on Metacritic, reviews lament its constant bugs and performance issues, soulless story, and lackluster gameplay, with the only redeeming qualities being its solid character performances and occasionally high-quality Unreal Engine 5 cinematics, when they aren't completely falling apart, that is. Now, this really is a shame because, apart from MindsEye, IO Interactive has had a pretty eventful month, revealing their upcoming 007 game and even launching an elusive target featuring actor Mads Mikkelsen reprising his role from Casino Royale. And after playing the mission myself, I'm even more confident that IO Interactive was the perfect choice for a Bond game, so I'm willing to forgive them for their part in the disastrous launch of MindsEye.
Dune also saw the release of an equally insane but infinitely better title, Death Stranding 2, which is perhaps the most Kojima game ever made, with incredible presentation and visuals, an insanely compelling if chaotic narrative, and maybe a few too many close-ups on Elle Fanning's feet. But this is exactly what we've come to expect from one of gaming's most enigmatic and talented creatives. Despite its absurdity, Death Stranding 2 has landed a very impressive Metacritic average of 90, making it one of the highest rated games of 2025 and a serious contender for Game of the Year.
Although the first game had a pretty mixed reception, with many branding it a walking simulator, I actually really enjoyed my time traversing its breathtaking environments, accompanied by an equally beautiful soundtrack. There was actually quite a bit of action, which people seem to overlook, but it's definitely ramped up even higher in the sequel. The core gameplay loop does of course still revolve around delivering packages, so if you weren't a fan of that in the original, this new entry probably won't change your mind. But for those who did enjoy the first game, Death Stranding 2 on the beach seems to be an improvement in every aspect. And I'm very excited to try it for myself when I'm in the right state of mind for some Kojima insanity. Another potential Game of the Year contender, in my opinion, is The Alters. I scored it a 9 out of 10 in a review earlier this month because of its incredibly novel and perfectly executed premise of an interplanetary expedition solely manned by clones of the main character, Jan Dolsky. Because of the various personalities and occupations in these genetically edited alters, you'll have to pay close attention to their moods or they might just start a rebellion. Sure, it's also a great survival game, but it's a much more impactful character study, and I'd highly recommend you experience it for yourself.
REMATCH is the latest game from the developers of Sifu, but I think you'll find the only thing this multiplayer football game has in common with their previous title is its excellent art style. Unlike something like FIFA, REMATCH has you controlling a single player from a third-person perspective, creating a much more immersive experience. Despite some occasional server issues and a lack of crossplay, the game is currently sitting at 78% positive reviews on Steam. On the other side of the multiplayer coin is FBC Firebreak, yet another co-op release from an established single-player studio, in this case from Remedy, creators of Alan Wake, Control, and Max Payne. However, it's safe to say this extraction FPS game hasn't quite hit the mark. With players and critics decrying its lack of content and plentiful balancing issues, it's not surprising that Firebreak peaked at less than 200 players on Steam in the last 24 hours. Although, Remedy has announced a milestone of 1 million total players, which is probably thanks to its inclusion on the PlayStation Plus catalogue, so fingers crossed the game delivers on its promise of free content updates, and it might just have a future. Dune Awakening might just be the most surprising success story of the month. Taking the form of an open-world survival MMO set in an alternate universe depiction of Arrakis, no one was exactly sure what to expect. However, by all available metrics, it's not only a faithful recreation of the iconic sci-fi world, but also a satisfying survival game. And with very positive reviews on Steam, it's safe to say that if you're a fan of the Dune franchise, it's definitely worth a try. Another well-received release in June was Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic, a first-person horror title originally designed for VR, but has since launched exclusively in flat screen, with virtual reality support coming in later updates. Despite this confusion, the game is still sitting at very positive reviews on Steam and seems to be a safe bet for fans of the series. Another safe but perhaps unexciting launch was the Nintendo Switch 2, releasing with very few exclusives or new features, but still delivering a vastly improved experience over the original device. Following in that theme, Mario Kart World has received many positive reviews, but none are too excited by its open world or quality of life improvements. Aside from Nintendo games, third-party releases on the Switch 2 don't seem to be selling too well, apart from Cyberpunk 2077, which finds itself in first place. Switch 2 itself is already the fastest selling console in history, so its relatively minor shortcomings don't seem to have made a difference. Earlier this month, we of course had quite a few video game showcases, all all of which were fairly decent if lacking surprises. But a few of the standout reveals were for Resident Evil Requiem, 007 First Light, Deadpool VR, Grounded 2, and Atomic Heart 2, among plenty of others. So what do we have to look forward to next month? Well, after a very eventful June, July does seem to be a little quieter, with Donkey Kong Bonanza on the 17th and Grounded 2 on the 29th. If you'd like to keep up to date on all of those titles and more, please make sure to consider subscribing.
Thank you for watching, see you next month.